here I am. I've changed the scene a little bit. So as you can see, I have moved the SUV, that Mercedes SUV over here. It's actually not going to be in panel 1. It just, the camera angle, it doesn't fit. So that's fine. I mean, a lot of this stuff is not going to ever be seen, even in other pages. I realize that, but I would rather have the scene prepared and have it mostly built out so that for the most part, anything I may need is going to be there. And if it's not there, it's not going to be a tremendous amount of work. This is the scene for the bank, which is several of the pages. There are more places, scenes, environments, whatever you want to call it, in other pages, and that's going to take a lot of work. But I'm not there yet. So here I am. What I've done is I've got this Escalade, this vehicle here. I've got a box truck, and actually I have a Vespa over here as well. That one's not going to show up in the panel either. Again, these might never be seen, but I just kind of want to prepare it for in case. And then what I did was I started to pose this character, the female character, in a walking, like I would. It's not exactly where I want it to be, but it's a good start. But what I ended up deciding to do was just, I was like, you know what? I don't need to have these posed in any particular way. What I do need, or at least what the purpose of this is to put them in different places around the scene so that they're closer or farther away from the camera. And these are all basically the same size. These two characters are more or less like regular people. There are some like huge superhero Hulk types. There's like an old man. There's like a baby and things like that. But this is for perspective. This is just so that I know when I go back to my camera, and I might even bring this character even closer. So let me go ahead and bring her closer to the camera. And then, yeah, so as you can see, this is just so that if I am drawing a character somewhere, I'll be like, oh, okay, so if the person's up in the foreground, maybe they're crossing the street, I'm going to see them from about the knees up to here. Their head would probably be around the middle of the box truck, or possibly around the top, because again, these heads are huge, so they're not representative. They're more for animation. And then this character, and then I might have another one later that's down here in case I wanted to do that. And in fact, let me see. No, for right now, I'll just leave it. But what I would do is I don't need to actually render this. I can render it if I want, but what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to set a keyframe. And then I'm also going to save it. But for right now, I'm just putting these guys here and I will reference it. I might render out an AO pass or a line art pass, most likely, with all of the objects in the background, the cars, etc., hidden, where the only things that will be here are going to be the characters. And then basically that will be the characters on a separate layer, and I can turn them on and off in the comic book page to just be like, okay, so that's the size, like their head would be around here if their feet were down here. Because without this, my scale could be off. I could have people with heads up to here, or, you know, just like it'd kind of be a mess. So I just put these in as placeholders. In fact, I could even be simpler and just make a cube and stretch it to just be this height. And then I could just move the cube around. But I like this because it actually looks like a person, and it's just kind of a little bit easier to picture a person, but it could be anything that's the correct height. And then you can just move them around and figure out where, what the dimensions would be, where their head is, etc. And it keeps the perspective perfect. So, like if someone was up here in one of the second story, third story buildings, maybe bedroom or office, and they had their head sticking out of it, and they were like, "Hey, you guys, you guys are too loud. Quiet down." I could throw them up there and I wouldn't have to guess like what's their relative size to this window. I would just be like, "Oh, well, there it is." Because they're the same size, I'm just moving them around. Back to this is I already did this. So I also went ahead and I kind of went with this. I might put a sort of a border, an inside border around here, but I probably won't. I'm going to try really hard to be imaginative and creative with the panel and page layouts. So anytime I can break the panel, I know you're supposed to not do that very often. It's for effect. But for example, this explosion, I would like at least some bits and pieces of rock and brick to be flying outside the panel. Maybe there's some smoke that would come up through the top. And then this is going to be a close-up on a machine gun that's pointing up in the air. So I'm going to find a machine gun model. I'm going to put it in there, and I'll do the same Pencil Plus type of thing with my own ink lines to give it my style. And then this is the page where, or this is the panel where the villain is, and her henchmen are in the bank, and it's kind of the big scene. It's not quite as big on the page as I would probably like because it's supposed to be a quote-unquote splash panel. But there are 4 panels, and there does need to be enough stuff going on and whatever. So I think it's going to work fine. And then here is the bathtub panel with the Magic Black Girl down at the bottom. I had to get rid of the inks from previously because I don't know why. I just put them in here, and I couldn't get it to line up anymore. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. And you can actually see it work. So I'm at 100%. And let's go ahead and get my tablet pen. Go to, I don't even know what that is. All right, so I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to call this ink, all capitals. I just tend to like that for some reason. Stabilization is all the way at 100. And I'm on 10, which is what I tend to like to use. Okay, so I'll be doing this quite a bit until I get what I want. And it's just basically going to be this sort of process. But it sure as heck beats trying to, and I could go into Pencil Plus and I could harden and soften different lines and try to really make it kind of all automatic through the plugin, but that's sometimes more trouble than it's worth. And also this way, again, this is my own inking, obviously, because you're seeing me do it, but this is going to just give it a little bit more of a human touch or a personal touch. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be pretty close because it is 3D. So you can't have just like some random lines that don't really fit. But also, as you saw, those car models are really dense, or at least most of them are. So it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out which lines are the ones that you want to render or harden. It takes some trial and error. You'll find that some aren't the ones that you thought they were, and then once you've hardened them, it's hard to remember which ones are hardened and which ones aren't. I'm sure there is a display option that will make it more obvious, but this is, I mean, for one panel at a time or one drawing at a time, I think this is not really that much work. So I just feel like just go ahead and do it this way. I've got everything I need to make it to guide me as to where I want the lines. So I'm never really guessing. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I don't really want it to be perfect. I just want it to be kind of where it's, and a lot of this is going to be done through coloring, hopefully. I mean, I'm going to color it myself, and I'm not like the most amazing colorist. I'm not a professional, but I think it's good enough, and I think it's not necessarily professional level, but there is something to be said about coloring your own work. I'm the one who drew it. I'm the one who kind of knows what my intentions are. I don't have to guess what anything is. I know what everything is and why it's there and what I mean by every line. So, yeah, I mean, I could have gone in and chosen to do these lines by hand, or had the plugin do it. And I did go back here and I closed that wall off. So this is just the AO, and I just didn't want to re-render it because pretty much all this stuff is going to be erased, and I'm just going to do like those, you know, those kind of window mirror type of lines. And then this stuff is all going to be gone. So I'm going to get rid of that because that's just, I just wanted to show you really briefly. And yeah, so this is just, I'm just getting these back in here since I lost them. And in this case, like right here, there's so many changes that have happened that I couldn't really, I mean, I struggled. I got a lot of these lines in by myself, and I think it looks pretty good. So it's just faster to just do it myself, honestly. But hopefully you can see with the quality of the video that I am not just sort of putting these lines wherever. I'm following the AO. So these are in the correct spot. I mean, they're in a logical spot based on the contours and the shapes and all that. So very cool, very, very cool. I would die if I had to do this kind of stuff by my hand, like if I had to do this on paper and pen. I even heard Ethan Van Sciver, one time, he said that he had to draw like a scene with some airplanes or cars, and maybe he'd use like a model car for reference, but he said, you know, that's one of the things he loves about doing his own book and writing his own story with Cyberfrog, is that if he doesn't want to draw cars, he just doesn't have to write cars into the story. So, you know, when someone's writing, it's kind of like they don't think about how hard this stuff is for an artist to draw. They don't know if the artist really has the necessary skills. I mean, sure, we should, quote unquote, we should, but sometimes we don't. Like, it's really difficult. But they just write whatever they want to write. But if we as the artist are also the writer, then we have control over what it is that we are going to be showing. I'm lucky because I didn't have these kinds of rules or guidelines or suggestions to the writer. I just said, I just basically kind of gave some general ideas. This is kind of what we're looking for. This is the style. This is the feeling. Just, do whatever you want to do. And knowing that I have the 3D skills to make pretty much anything happen. Now, that's not to say everything's going to come along quickly and be easy to do. Not at all. It's actually not easy or quick at all. Coming up with this whole city scene, this bank scene, was not fast. But, now that it's done, all the pages that are done in this place, in this setting, it's going to come along pretty quickly. Maybe not, not like super fast, but it's going to all be very consistent. And I think it's going to come along a lot faster than if ever I was trying to, do this by hand. And, oh man, I really hope I can draw cars, because I can't, and they would look really terrible. I guarantee you that. I don't really like that. Shoot. But, shoot. So, yeah, something like this. Something like this is what I'm going for, and I'm almost done. So, the remaining things are basically to get the mannequins on a separate layer, get them into here just so I can turn them on and off to see the sizing of how big people should be based on where they are in the scene, because it is a city, so I do want there to be enough people to make it look like it's not a bare city where it's like, oh, this guy just doesn't want to draw a bunch of people. He doesn't know how to draw people or whatever. That's the last thing I want anybody to think. Not that they would, but it's not going to take that much more work to populate this with sort of a New York amount of people, which I just think is going to make it look better. And that's really what it's all about, is to knock it out of the park. Don't give anybody a reason to be like, I'm not going to back the book because it's just not really that good. No, it's going to be great. It's freaking going to be great. And so the little bit of extra work that I'm doing is totally worth it, in my opinion. And let's see if there's anything else I need to do right now. I think that's going to pretty much be it. But let's zoom out. And if I turn on and off the ink, you can see that it makes a big difference. And if I turn off the AO, you can kind of see even more. So I will add some people in there, put them on a separate layer. I'll do the window mirror type of thing and erase out with a mask. I'll erase out the inside part of the bank. No need to see that, only in here. And I'll probably clean up this part of the Range Rover and clean up this tire. And yeah, that'll be the next step. And then I'm going to have to start sort of putting in the explosion, figuring out where that's going to be, and really kind of maybe break some of these windows, maybe break some of these windows actually, obviously, and then just go from there. So it's coming along. It's pretty exciting, and this is the way that I'm going to be working on this. And thanks for checking it out. I really appreciate it. As always, if you like it, give a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer any questions or respond to comments. I think that would be awesome. But yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys. Thanks so much. Take care.